Soryu is on a biking pilgrimage right now. So he's off on his adventure, and a number of our other residents are up in Toronto at the Mindful Society Conference. So Pavel and Pan and I have been holding down the fort this week, which has been really beautiful. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rosie. I am one of the full-time residents of the Monastic Academy. I came here from California. And today I'd really like to talk with you all about this concept of self-sanctuary that has been really, really powerful in my life. So before I get into my personal experiences and my definition, I'm really curious if anyone has anything that comes up for them around that term that they'd like to share, maybe a definition or an idea that it brings up for them. Self-sanctuary.
I get just a thought on it when I hear those two words together. It reminds me that there have been periods in my life where the self wasn't necessarily a sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And more and more as I go along in life, I'm learning how to make the self a sanctuary, like a peaceful sanctuary, rather than you hear things like, I just heard it today from a friend. When you're in your head, you're behind enemy lines. You're your own worst enemy. Things like that. And to some degree in our society today, that's true. Maybe to a big degree. And I've experienced that myself, where I've been my own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two words together, self-sanctuary, it's kind of like maybe a hopeful, two words together that sound hopeful and pleasant, grounding.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be nice to have a sanctuary and have it be your own body and your own self be your actual sanctuary where you're safe and serene.
I love that, Tony. I love that. The definition that I'm using for sanctuary is a sacred place to be nourished. And the self is a very contentious idea in Buddhism, but I'm using it here to mean our human form that we use to experience the world. So I really want to jump off of what Tony was saying, because when I was 20 years old, I finally started being a friend to myself. And at 26, I'm not fluent in doing that every day, but this is really going to be a talk on why I became a friend to myself and how. And hopefully offering ways for all of us to do the same, with the ultimate goal of being able to serve and love not just ourselves, but a community, our families, our friends, the world. So for me, it took the greatest loss of my life to actually realize that I was worth loving and I was worth being a friend to myself. When I was 20 years old, I lost my father to suicide. And it was earth-shattering. It was completely the greatest pain that I've ever experienced. And And when I'm able to access it, it's also the greatest source of wisdom, my greatest teacher, my ability to be with that reality. He was a wonderful man. He was loving, and in many ways, one of my greatest role models. Welcome. And so it was at that moment, being able to pinpoint that exact moment, where I realized, oh my gosh, there's actually suffering in the world. There are people who are suffering in this world. I'm experiencing it myself in my own grief process. And it made me so curious. Why and what is it that allows us to be well? What is it that allows us to understand our suffering and the suffering around us and lean in rather than away? So I've spent the last few years working in mental health, working with people struggling, as my dad was, with addiction and depression, and getting a master's degree in the field of positive psychology, which is the science of well-being. It's the science of happiness. What is it? What components exist that we can look at, that we can distill, that allow us to find sanctuary or to live our best lives? While I was doing this master's program at the University of Pennsylvania last year, one of my guest professors, Chris Feutner, he's a pediatric palliative care doctor. So he works for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and he helps families whose children are deathly ill. And the concept that I was so enamored with, that he was able to share with us, is this idea of regoaling. That sometimes in our lives, actually probably most of the time, we aren't in control of everything that happens. And yet we have control, we have power in the relationship that we have to life as it comes at us. How do we respond? What are our values? And so while he was working primarily as a physician, a lot of what he was doing was helping families figure out what their priorities are and manage their hopes and dreams. Because as he said, hope can be a useful tool, but it can also be the enemy. It can be something that steals us from the present moment, something that takes us away from what's happening, what's really happening right now. And so he was able to guide families in choosing the components, the values that were most important to them in caring for their loved one. So perhaps their main priority is spending quality time and playing with their child for as long as possible. And then a decision might naturally, organically come from that. Of course, we're going to take our child home. Of course, we're going to be at home together. But maybe their top priority is being closer to God. And who knows what that might look like tangibly. Or extending life as long as possible. That might look like staying in the hospital. But once you know what's most important to you, it becomes much easier to make choices based on those values. So there are so many things that I want to share with you, but I think the thing that feels most important is this idea that the Dalai Lama is rather fond of. I don't know if any of you have read his book with Desmond Tutu, The Book of Joy. It just came out. I love this book that they collaborated on. But they keep coming back to the power of compassion and the importance of compassion. The Dalai Lama has a quote that his religion is friendship. He's a simple monk, and his religion is friendship. And he also says that if you want to be happy, practice compassion. If you want other people to be happy, practice compassion. And so my journey and my life experiences with loss and with trying to come to terms with a new normal and a new world based on those experiences really led me to explore positive psychology through the back end. So I wrote my master's thesis on the positive psychology of death and dying. How can we live with the reality of really hard things that is the water we're swimming in? It's just, there are hard things. That's the world we're living in. How can we lean into that without ignoring it? How can we be with the pain of that without shying away from it? Or if we are at our level and our ability to hold these things, how do we give ourselves permission to not do more than we're capable of? So the idea of self-sanctuary is creating a space, maybe an oasis or a refuge inside yourself where you do have peace, where you do feel nourished, where you can make your well-being, your self-care, your self-compassion a priority, so that in a vital way, in a sustainable way, you can offer love and compassion and care to others. Because in my experience, I'm the sort of person who wants to give, who wants to reach outside of myself to love another person. But I'm also realizing that sometimes, and perhaps all the time, the best thing I can do for others is make sure I'm starting with this core. Does anyone throw pottery or know what it looks like to throw pottery? So a potter at a wheel has a spinning wheel that they throw a big mound of clay onto. And then as the wheel is spinning, they center that ball of clay. And if the clay is not centered when they start to bring the clay up and work with it, the entire thing will be lopsided. And I think you can use that metaphor to think about coming from a centered core and a place of inner clarity before interacting with the world, before sharing the light that you have with the world. I do want to make something really clear that feels important, that when I use the term self-sanctuary, I do not mean seclusion, because I think it's easy to get that impression that maybe I have to be completely whole or completely in control of my life before I can offer love or a listening ear to others. But I certainly don't mean that, because here's some cool research from positive psychology. In the study of emotional mirror neurons and emotional expression, there's this really cool researcher, Barbara Fredrickson, who does work on love. And basically what she says is that love is the overpowering emotion, the emotion that connects all people. So even when we're experiencing sadness together, the experience of sharing an emotion is a moment of positive resonancy. So even if what you're sharing is sadness, anger, frustration, the fact that you are compassionately experiencing it together, compassion means feeling together, there is incredible benefits to that moment, to that spark, to that like moment of connection. So there's another concept in positive psychology, and I think this is the reason why I love this field so much. This concept is post-traumatic growth. I'm curious if anyone has heard this. There's two people in the back, sound like they have. Anyone have any ideas when they hear that word, post-traumatic growth? They feel like, yeah.
It's like a long Krista tidbit thing where she was talking about that, and basically like the difference in this context of soldiers coming back, and there's the post-traumatic stress and like the shutdown, but then also obviously the opportunity for growth and readjusting to what has happened and creating positive, like new links around dealing with that versus going into like the stressful shutdown habit.
Yeah, awesome. So when I first heard this concept, I was 21 years old. I was studying abroad in Denmark, studying crisis psychology and positive psychology. And this concept of being able to take your negative life experiences, the things that have challenged you the most, and use them as your sources of wisdom, growth, and as a catalyst for clarifying your values. And I wanted to stand on top of the desk in that classroom and say, that's me. I've experienced that. Because I realized that when I lost my father, my ability to empathize with the world increased so much, and it woke me up. The things that I thought mattered as a 20-year-old didn't matter anymore. I went back for my junior year of college and was nicer to myself than I've ever been in my entire life. Started taking the classes that I wanted to take, creative writing classes. Decided not to take the accounting classes that I didn't want to take. Started taking breaks in my closet after class and before varsity soccer to let myself rest. Things, really simple things like making myself a cup of tea and allowing myself to write in my journal, that I would normally have this voice in my head saying, that's a waste of time, you need to work harder. I actually got better grades that year and played better soccer than I've ever done before. But it took my dad dying for me to be a friend to myself, which makes me so sad. I don't want that to be the impetus or the catalyst for everyone's growth. You know, I want a different way. You know, I want us to be able to grab and absorb the tools for self-compassion and self-care as a vital avenue for being of service to the world, or for being with those who are suffering. There is this meditation technique called Tonglen. And in Tibetan Buddhism, it is a concept of giving, of receiving and giving. So it's a process of breathing in the suffering of a person, a community, whatever you may be experiencing, or the world, and breathing out peace and joy. And the word I like to use to describe this is alchemy. So alchemy. Is that a word that you've heard before? So transformation. The way alchemy is normally used is turning coal into gold, you know.
Turning everything into gold.
Yeah, turning, and coal is a good example of something that is not, you know, often seen as, well, now actually coal is quite valuable.
Straw is still on the list.
Straw, yeah.
Turns into diamonds.
Dog poop to gold.
Oh, there you go.
Does coal, yeah. We should use diamonds instead of gold. So there is this alchemy that's possible. And the idea is that by bringing our awareness and our attention and being a witness to things exactly as they are, we have this beautiful, beautiful power to heal. And I said I was going to make this talk simple. That doesn't mean it's easy. It's hard. This is hard. But the Four Noble Truths, as the Buddha describes them, start with this idea that suffering exists. And if you're able to acknowledge that, you're ahead of the game, because a lot of people aren't. So the first noble truth, suffering exists. The second, that it has a source. The third, that when we are able to see that source, we can be free from that suffering. We can be liberated from it, not necessarily by changing anything in our environment, but by changing our relationship to our suffering, to our experiences. And the fourth is building a pathway from suffering to liberation, back and forth, rolling the boulder up the hill, realizing that you're falling into the same patterns or the same pitfalls that you have before, bringing compassion to it, you know, doing the heavy lifting. And for me, it seems hardest when I'm in it, when I'm telling myself, and this, I think this is coming from like the caregiver mindset, is often I want to be giving myself fully to someone else. If I offer that compassion to myself, that's energy that could be going elsewhere, you know. So that's where I'm coming from. My master's thesis was on caring for the caregivers. How do we make the work that we do sustainable? And after all of this research, what I basically came to understand is that self-care and self-compassion isn't an extra thing that you tack on at the end. You know, it's vital and it needs to start there. And if you are able to rigorously offer love and compassion and care to yourself, then the way I see it is you've created an oasis, an orbit, where whenever you're in contact with someone else, it's an opportunity for positive intervention, a moment of love. And so often I fall short of how I want to be able to do that. But for me, it feels like a beautiful intention to try to be this this alchemizing force in the world. I'm really excited to offer you some of my favorite meditations. Most of them are loving kindness meditation. That's my jam. So meta meditation. But over the course of the next hour, I'll be offering a small visualization to create your own sanctuary, a Tonglen meditation to offer loving kindness to someone you care about, or maybe more broadly, a group of people, or if you're feeling really tenacious, maybe the world. And then ending with offering that same compassion to yourself. So if you guys feel like stretching maybe before we get started. And finding a comfortable position for yourself. I invite you to straighten up and settle in. Taking a deep breath into your belly. Perhaps bringing a slight smile to your lips. Thanking yourself for this practice and the time and the intention that you're bringing. Feeling the ground under your feet and the chair holding you up.
Excuse me, could you raise your voice a bit?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Here you are safe. And your only job is to be present. Allowing your body to relax. Allowing your breath to fill your belly. and release fully. And as you begin to settle into your body, bringing your awareness to your heart. This is an exploration in what it means to live wholeheartedly. Before you, you see a staircase. You take a step forward, grabbing the handrail. As one foot reaches out and touches the first step. You begin to follow the staircase down. Each foot meeting each step. And as you descend, you begin to see that you are entering a foyer. And you see a door in front of you. You reach the bottom of the steps. The door has a sign on it. As you walk closer, you can read it clearly. Enter here to live wholeheartedly. You open the door. It opens easily. You walk through. What do you see? Are you inside or outside? The door closes behind you. And vanishes. But you know that it will reappear whenever it is that you need it. You now have a 360-degree view of this wholehearted world. What does it look like? What season is it? What can you feel? Sunlight on your skin, the sounds of life, animals, people, music. What can you smell? The smell of grass, of coffee. Take a moment to breathe in this space. You turn to your left. You see a detail you hadn't noticed before. What is this? You turn to your right, and there is a picture in a frame. What is it of? as you walk forward, you see something glimmering in the distance. And you know it's a gift for you to remind you what it means to live wholeheartedly. You walk towards it. You open your hand to receive it. And hold it there, admiring the gift that is for you. What is it that you see there? As you hold this gift, you let it absorb into your being. Knowing that this can be carried with you. You find a cozy place to rest. This could be a chair, a grassy knoll, a sandy dune by the ocean, whatever is nourishing for you. Someone is joining you here. Someone you care about deeply and who needs your support or is in some form of pain or suffering. Maybe this is someone you haven't been able to offer support to for whatever reason. They join you here now. Try to envision their face as clearly as possible. What are they wearing? What are their eyes saying? What is it like for you to be here with them? Now, as you see them clearly in front of you, take a few deep breaths to really breathe them in. And on the in-breath, breathe in the pain the suffering. And on the out breath, breathing out peace and love. And whatever it is that they need. Imagine the texture that the pain has. Is it hot, foggy, allowing it to fill you? And on the out breath, the texture of peace. Perhaps a lightness, a coolness. Relaxing sensation. You find it surprisingly easy to meet this person here. And in this special place of wholehearted living, you are able to witness be with this process for a few minutes. Now pull your attention back to your own heart. You may even wish to rest one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Offer the same care that you might offer to this loved one, to yourself. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be at ease. May I be free from suffering. May I be nourished. May I be loving. May I be loved. Thank your loved one for being with you. As they drift off. You are here in this space of wholeheartedness. And for the next few minutes, offering yourself the same care you offered to your loved one, breathing in your own pain, discomfort, breathing out a sense of peace, of wholeness. Allowing the denseness of suffering to fill you. And then release as light. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I be at ease. May I be free from suffering. May I be nourished. May I be loving. May I be loved. And as you rise from your resting place, you take one more look around. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Maybe a sense of gratitude. A sense of being home. Maybe some melancholy. You take a few steps forward, and before you the doorway appears again. You reach out and open the door. It opens easily. And you step through. With one hand on the rail, you step on the first stair and begin to climb step by step, moving up, back to where you sit in the Burlington Friends Meeting House. Allowing yourself to rest again here with your feet on the ground, your body held by your chair. Allowing yourself to move your fingers and toes. In a moment, I will ring the bell, and we will have a few minutes to practice in motion. This will be an opportunity to use the restroom, grab a glass of water, take care of yourself in any way you need. And then when you hear the bell again, we will return. For this next sitting period, I invite you to practice the cultivation of loving kindness, beginning first with yourself. I'll be offering you a number of phrases. And then moving outwards to a loved one. I invite you to stretch up and settle in. Allowing your breath to fill your lower belly. Allowing your body to relax. And for 4 breaths, offering, may I be happy to yourself. May I be healthy. May I be at ease. What emotions come up for you as you offer this compassion to yourself? Maybe it brings sadness or feels like a struggle. What's that like? Maybe it feels joyful and easeful. What's that like? Bringing your curiosity and your full attention to whatever it is that you're experiencing in this moment. Knowing that whatever it is you're experiencing is okay. Now bringing to mind someone you love, someone you care about, who may be experiencing pain, suffering, sickness. Try to visualize them as clearly as you can. The details of their clothes, their facial expressions. What are their eyes saying? What is their mouth saying? What is it like to be with them? Now with your attention on your loved one, wishing them the same compassion. May you be happy. And breathing this intention in and out for a few breaths. May you be healthy. What is it that they are struggling with? Bring your love and attention to that. May you be at ease. May you be free from suffering. May you be nourished. Where do you feel this compassion in your body? Now bring your attention to all those who may be suffering in the same way as this loved one. The same struggle, pain. Casting your net of compassion further. Spreading it over your loved one, yourself, and others who may be struggling. May we be happy. Visualizing this intention reaching all those who are suffering. May we be healthy. May we be at ease. May we be free from suffering. May we be nourished. And with the last 10 minutes of this meditation, allowing yourself to practice loving kindness in whatever way you wish. Knowing that with each breath in, you breathe in for all of us. And with each breath out, you breathe out for all of us. So this is a time for questions and comments, to share what the meditation was like for you, however you want to use this time.
I have a question. Thank you for your talk and for the guidance. I'm wondering how, as you were experiencing the pain that you described with the loss of your father, how was it that you came so alive? Did you use specific techniques? Was it spontaneous? Was it some sort of process?
Such a beautiful question. Grace, spontaneous grace. I think the one thing I'm proud of in that experience is being really curious about this new world that I just had never been, this new community, tribe that I had never been a part of before, and learning this new song of loss and grief, and there was a lot to learn there that I feel like I continue to learn every day. Every day I feel like I have, whenever I feel like I've gotten it, there's something completely new to learn. Kathy, did you have something? I wasn't sure if your hand was raised or not.
It wasn't, but I.
Oh.
Well, thank you for your talk and your guidance. And one thing I really liked, I liked your analogy with the pottery. You know, because I have done a little, just tried pottery in the past. That's a really good analogy. Because it's such a struggle too to anchor yourself in and really center it as it is to center ourselves. And I was just thinking when you were talking about your spontaneous combustion, whatever. I remember when I lost my dad, it was many years ago now, and that was really the first major, loss that I had experienced. And I remember walking out of the church and I was shocked that cars were going by, people were walking around. I was like, what in the hell?
Don't they know that everything is different?
The whole world has changed, right? That everything is different. And I wonder, if it's just that that depth of feeling that I had never felt before, even though it was a difficult emotion. Unlike when I'm trying to get to my own emotions or whatever now, there was no, it was just there, and it was grief, and it was deep, and it was something I had never experienced. And I remember at the time telling myself, okay, I'm gonna stay with this. I'm not gonna, as my brothers were getting high and whatever, because that's what we did back then, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just gonna really stay with this, and but I just remember that feeling of the church doors opening and walking outside and it just, everything was different. I don't think I had the same kind of immediate, thing like that. But I wonder if it's just the depth of emotion that, I always think of a therapist I saw long ago that, if you increase your capacity for the dark, you increase your capacity for the light. Or you increase one or the other, you're increasing your capacity to feel,
Thank you for sharing that. It's incredibly courageous to lean in and say, I'm going to experience this. I'm not going to turn away. There's a Khalil Gibran quote. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the prophet. Mm-hmm. And he says that grief carves us out as a deeper vessel for joy. Mm-hmm. Just sounds exactly like what you're saying.
That's beautiful.
Well, I really appreciated you doing the metta. That is something that I really try to practice a lot. And I thought it fit in very nicely with your talk. It occurred to me that by offering the compassion to yourself, it's really a way of opening yourself, not only to receive compassion, but to offer it to others. So it just seemed appropriate in that way. And the other incident that happened to me recently was in a yoga class, actually, where the teacher hands, in the class that I go to, hands out cards for intentions that tuck under your mat. And I picked ask for help. And on the reverse side, it said, receiving help is an act of generosity. And I just thought that was because as people, basically trying to be helper and nurturer, it is sometimes difficult to realize how much of a gift it is to others to let them also show compassion, help, and nurture.
I feel so much tenderness hearing you share that. There's, I think, so much wisdom and humility in that realization that, it is a gift to accept help. And a hard lesson, hard thing to really get and live. Thank you. Tony.
Yeah, Rosie, thanks for your talk and your guidance. Really great meditation I had. In fact, it was, I was having a really great meditation, and then I realized that I was not comfortable because I have I have a spine problem. So lots of times I would just kind of, breathe into it and try not to run away from it and kind of let my body just do what it knows how to do, and all the things that I've learned from Shinzen, and take it as an opportunity to do that. This time I said, you know what, I'm going to lie down. I'm not going to, use this as an opportunity. I want to be comfortable right now. And that was, I think, a direct result of the theme of your meditation was self-love and self-care, doing things, for ourselves. And there's so much in your talk that I resonated with that I was really, thinking, wow, where can I comment on that? And some of the stuff that I was thinking about has already come up, and one was that, well, when you said just now, a little while ago, you said in regards to the question before about grace was the first thing that came to mind as far as your ability to, the direction you took. Okay, where did that come from? And it was grace. And yeah, you know, I've had grace, and then I'm thinking, okay, you need it, does it take grace to accept grace? Like, is there a layer of grace? You know, because you need you could take the gift of grace and just piss it away. I do it all the time.
Or reinterpret it.
Yeah. So, anyways, what came to me was what resonated with me deeply this time was the grieving and community. I've experienced a lot of healing and growth with allowing my grief to be public with people that I trust, or just grieving in community. I think the more I'm able to do that, the more open I am about my pain with others. There's something about that. And maybe it's part of it is allowing somebody to help me. You know, that whole thing that you were talking about, that anyways, it's for me, you know, it's just a continual process about, you know, I had a deep loss. My son died 15 years ago from a heroin overdose. You know that,
Yeah.
and we've talked about it, and you know, that rocked my world, and somehow I was able to not let it destroy my life, essentially, to choose life rather than, I guess you can have a broken heart and still choose life rather than like giving up, that kind of thing. And I don't know where that came from. Grace. I don't know. I guess grace would be how come some people respond to that kind of a event in their life, and they essentially gradually die. I've seen it happen. Or choose self-destruction. You know, addiction and all kinds of stuff. Or there's that path of compassion and self-love, and carving out the vessel for joy, which seems like it just can't happen, but it does. Yeah. So thanks for reminding me about that.
Thank you. I'm so glad that one of the components you're taking away is the value of grieving in community. There's a concept of the heart being broken open, or of being a wounded healer, which is exactly what you're saying. There's no need to be whole before being in connection and harvesting the gifts of sharing and witnessing for each other. It's powerful that you're you've been able to find communities to do that? Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very rich. Lots of stuff. Lots of, like other people were saying, there was a lot there for me.
Yeah, I'm feeling like this tenderness in the room that's like...
Yeah, it was really, and I love the way you brought us through the meditation. Gone, totally gone into it, and the room and everything, and the place. Great, lots of animals and stuff. In terms of grief, I think something I connected with that I hadn't previously is I had a post-traumatic event when I was 8 where I essentially lost my family. And, I think it was so heavy and so that I just closed up and wasn't able to heal that until I was 29 when I opened it, kind of opened it back up and did the grieving. And one thing I remember is sitting with my therapist at the time who had blonde, beautiful hair, and she was just radiant. And I felt like I'm sitting here and I'm in the darkness and you're in the light, but we're both sitting here, and it was so disturbing to me that we were sitting right next to each other, but I was in the darkness and she was in the light. And but what happened for me, which is what I was sort of tuning into, is I learned about the darkness, and it became a haven. I mean, in a positive way, not in a like. I found that I could dance in the darkness. Like after, it took me probably a couple of years of work, but I found that I could be in that darkness and find joy in the darkness. And it made me able to be with other people in the darkness in a way that a lot of other people I knew couldn't after that. It felt like, like I had learned a skill of, I still have more healing, and there's been layers, like what you were saying, of healing still, but that was probably a deep healing of kind of my soul, you could say. So, I had to share.
That's such a beautiful and poetic way of describing that process for yourself. The American Buddhist Pema Chodron has this quote of making the poison your medicine, and being able to use your experience as a way of being comfortable where other people might not be comfortable, and meeting other people where you might otherwise not be willing to meet them. I can really resonate with that idea. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's exciting to hear that. Kelly. You were smiling the whole time.
I just have so much I want to talk to you about later. And tremendous gratitude and appreciation for emanating, literally, divine feminine and bringing in divine mother to the room, and to bring in, like, sort of sitting with tremendous heat and appreciation, love and gratitude and swirling emotion, and yeah. So, yeah. and it connects me to a quote that someone said during the sharing a few weeks back. It said, "Be you till fall."
Beautiful. Till full. I remember that guy.
Yeah. Nice.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'm really thankful for this meditation. When I came in, I just was carrying a lot of like anger and like even hatred. I feel like lately I have this issue going on. Like right when we started the meditation, like I could just feel this sense I've been thinking lately of my like hatred as like this egg, this made of metal or something, this like heavy thing. And like just immediately I was able to like hold it out, and I just felt like the energy in the room and like just light just took it away. And like I still feel very raw from like that,
Yeah.
but I feel like a lot of the weight went away, and like it just really opened me up to just peace. And I loved the parts where we looked at a photo and then where we found the glimmering item. And it took me a while to like walk towards my item, because I was like, what is it gonna be, you know? And it was just really beautiful. I feel like it was a real place that I went to, and I was just struck when you told us to come back into this room that I really had a sense that I left this room and I went to this place, and I thought how beautiful it is that like we all, you know, have this opportunity to like leave and come back, and I'm just, you know, I'm very thankful for this, for everyone's energy here.
Thank you for sharing. I definitely feel a tenderness in the room, and I want to make sure that that's honored. And my goal with giving that visualization, in going through a grief counseling certification, there was this meditation, this wholehearted meditation that has been with me for over 2 years now, and it's a place that I go back to when I need to, and I hope that each one of us can have a place like that available to them. I also want to honor anyone who's feeling really raw, or like a lot of times when I try to offer compassion to someone else, it leaves me feeling like guilty at my limitations, or struggling to be okay with the way things are, the way I'm feeling, or the way I know someone I care about is feeling. So I just want to honor the mixed bag of emotion that comes with the courage to look at these topics. And I know I'm actually feeling like a very interesting mixture of like gratitude and softness and melancholy and tenderness. So whatever it is that you're feeling, is okay. We have time for 1 or 2 more shares. I love hearing about people's meditations and how it was for them. Yes.
This might sound really like hokey, but once upon a time I heard that you shouldn't enter your head without adult supervision. I tend to take things quite literally. But what I really like about this guided meditation, thank you very much, Rosie, by the way, is yeah, you know, I think I'm an artist, you know, somebody that at least wants to aspire to be. And
I think you are what you do.
Yeah, right. And yeah, there's this idea of the tortured artist, the idea that it's, you know, it's not even a matter of being selfless. It's just this torturous, arduous task of trying to express yourself. And I think that it could also turn into a pretty self-destructive pattern of thinking if you get mixed up in your practice. And you know, someone like Jackson Pollock, you know, it could turn into a substance abuse problem. When you're guided, something that, you know, I can't really do on my own is give myself permission to really look at the thing that I'm either carrying or, you know, that little divinity spirit that's following me. Because when you were talking about, you said open up the door at the bottom of the stairs. First of all, I imagined myself walking upstairs, and I was like, but, I couldn't. I had a hard time imagining that sacred space, and I think it's because I tend not to give myself permission to look at things anyway. So when it comes time to imagine something, I'm realizing the thing that is that's impeding my thoughts is the thing that I'm afraid of looking at. The Buddha, the Medicine Buddha, was a book that was staring back at me over there too. The Medicine Buddha, towards the end, I opened up my hands, and he's depicted, someone in the iconography is holding a vessel in his hand. And he's not a benign looking Buddha, he's quite menacing looking. And the point is, he's not here to cure you, he's not here to make you happy. He's here to cure the world. You know, he's here to dispel that sickness that we hold deeply. And it's menacing because oftentimes it's not good energy that allows you to fully embrace it. You have to see, you know, the dark side and understand how you ought to embrace it. So, this is just, you know, I'm reminded that I need to practice looking more and practice giving myself more permission to see and to feel deeply.
I love that idea of cultivating the ability to give yourself permission. It's powerful and challenging and kind of scary too, to look at those things, parts of your experience that might not be palatable or comfortable. So that sounds and feels really exciting to me, that you've gotten a taste of that and that you are interested in cultivating that. Thank you for sharing. So that is all the time we have. And Pan has a few items that he's going to share, I believe.
So, thank you, Rosie.